morning, everybody. This is Tim Bennett, and I am your host today. I'm so happy to be here with our very special guest, and who I'll introduce you to shortly. Just some guidelines for today's conversation. The lines are presently all closed, but if you do have a question for either myself or Georgia, I will open the question. I will open the lines for you, and please ensure that you have a quiet background. And if you have headphones, even better, because we get echo. But you're very welcome to join us live on chat if you wish to and ask questions. But please keep the questions on topic. We're going to be discussing film financing, especially today. But welcome to the show. This is Tim Bennett from the argonet.com website. And this is Awesome FM, where we spend our life interviewing awesome people. And just by being here, you are awesome. And this is the Film Finance Show. And our guest today is Georgia Hilton. I met Georgia about 1 month ago on a website called stage32.com. And it's a bit like Facebook for the movie industry. And I came across one or two of Georgia's comments. And there was something about them and about her frankness and her willingness to use words such as do film financing correctly or bury your head in the sand. Don't read this because you'll get pissed off. And there was just something about it that appealed to me. And then she finished the article about the 8 steps to financing a film, which is what we're going to be discussing today, with either do this properly or go and find yourself a rich lover, or words to that effect. And I just thought, my God, this is a girl who's talking the same words that I use, and I'd really like to get to know her. So I sent her an email about a month ago and said, would you be interested in coming on this program and sharing your rich thoughts with us? And she jumped at the opportunity. We met last night online for the first time ever and had a chat, and we talked for about 15 minutes. And what an amazing woman I think already. And I think we're going to be in for a great night. So ladies and gentlemen, please, without any more hesitation, let me welcome the one and only, the magnificent, awesome Georgia Hilton. Good evening. Good morning, Georgia.
Good evening. How are you? And how is everyone? I hope you're having a great time tonight. We're going to talk about how to get your movie financed.
Well, you know what?
It's not going to be easy, but there's a way to do it.
Yeah, well, the article that really appealed to me was the article that we're going to discuss mainly today, although we're going to, hopefully cover a lot of different topics, was the 8 steps to financing. And I'm actually at step 1, which is why I was so interested in this. And we'll go into that a little bit at the moment. I'm just about to launch my own movie next Monday, I think it is. We're launching in the cinemas,
Yeah,
and I'm super excited about that, kind of nervous, but I'm also hoping to get return of investment so I can go to step 2. But before we get...
I'm sure it's going to work out.
Oh, it better do, because I just sold one of my condominiums to finance it.
Hey, wait a minute. You're taking away my thunder here.
Okay, sorry. I didn't say that. Okay, so maybe before we get going, Georgia, you could just give a little overview of who you are. I'm sure there's some people who don't know you, and just explain some of the things you've been doing.
Well, just so you guys know, I'm an independent filmmaker, just like you guys, although I don't like to use the word filmmaker because the word filmmaker doesn't imply you know what you're doing. Tell people when they ask you, you say you produce movies. So I produce movies. I used to work on Wall Street. I got burned out and thought, God, I couldn't stand working for Citibank any longer, and I wanted to do something a little more artsy-fartsy, and I love technology, and I love art, and I thought filmmaking was the perfect place to be. So I started out as a sound designer and a sound editor, and after doing a slew of movies and TV shows and looking at every frame of these movies, probably more than the editor does, I realized that these editors, a lot of these editors are screwing up, and I could do that. So I started editing movies. The next thing I know, I was doing color correct, and by the time I got done, I was producing feature films, handling all the post-production from end to end, and I'm actually just now, after 15 years, producing my own movies because I've been fixing everyone else's for about 15 years now. we have a group called Film Doctors, which are a whole bunch of great filmmakers from all around the world that help out independent filmmakers on their projects, producers, directors, editors. And we've basically been doing a pretty good job of recovering and reconditioning, fixing, re-editing, and basically getting independent features to market.
That is awesome. And when I looked through your resume the first time I saw it, I was staggered by how much stuff you've actually been involved in. And not just producing, but as you said, for every aspect, from sound to effects to producing to directing, all sorts of things. You've done masses. I don't think I've ever met anyone who's done more than you.
Well, I've dabbled in a lot of things. I don't profess to be an expert in anything, but I have learned the hard way how to make a movie and how to make it make money.
Fantastic. And one of the things that really appealed to me about you, Georgia, was that we both looked at the industry and said there has to be a better way.
Yep.
I have just made my second movie, and the first one, I'll admit, when my friends came to me and said, would I like to invest some money in this movie, I really wanted to satisfy my ego. I just wanted to see my name up on the screen. So I gave some money to that, and I sat in the cinema and had my ego satisfied. And then I went ahead and made a second movie, and I was amazed at how the industry around me was not working. They were directors and producers were making movies, but they had no real finance to help them out. And I thought, this is crazy. And all that I'm doing right now with these interviews was really to find solutions to help directors and producers around the world creatively make finance. And, this is how we met. So I think we're going to share some secrets today. I just want to go back to shout out to some people before we get going. We've got Tom Anthony, who I know has got a question for us. He is based in the Philippines, and he's a guy that I'm doing a project with shortly, another movie we're putting together. He's got some questions for you. And Tiffany,
Great.
Stephanie, we got the SB group, we got Roy, Nicole, Morris, Michelle, Matthew, La Quinta, Kerry, Julia, Jonathan, John, Jimmy, and Gracie. Is it Gila and Dawn Fields? So that's awesome. And
Outstanding.
Yeah, we got quite a lot of people here. Gracie and Matthew were both here before I got here, at about at least 30 minutes before we got started. So shout out to you two guys. And I tell you what I'm doing, because you came so early, I will send you a free transcript of today's webinar as a special bonus, because you got here before me. So great to see. If you've got any questions as we go along, type them into the chat box, and Georgia and I will answer them. And as I say, towards the end of the interview, we can open up some lines and talk to some of you directly as well. So let's get going. We're going to be talking about financing a film. And that's the whole idea of today's conversation. And the article that inspired me was an article that Georgia wrote called The 8 Steps to Financing a Film. So let's head on over right now to the first step. I'll just find the correct slide. There you go. Step 1 is write a check for $10,000 out of your own pocket and make a feature-length film, and then make $10,001 or $10,001 out of that. Yep. So explain what you mean by all of this and why.
Well, the bottom line, let me start with why I wrote this article and what kind of transpired. And I bet everybody here has heard this before. I was on Stage 32, and one of the other Stage 32 people sent me a message and said, will you help me with my movie? And I said, great. I'm always happy to chat with people, throw some ideas around. You never know what happens. And he sent me this great one-pager, and it was all about his fantastic movie and how the writer was phenomenal and how the director was phenomenal and the producer was great, and this movie was going to make millions and millions of dollars, and he only needed $20 million to make it. He was the writer, he was the director, he was the producer. He had no talent attached, no director of any value attached. He had never made a movie before in his life, and he wanted somebody to write him a check for $20 million. So That's just not going to happen.
No,
Not in a million years.
I wish I could get someone to do that for me as well.
Oh yeah, hey, I'll be the first one in that line. If anybody here has got $20 million and wants to make a movie, call me tonight. In the meantime, reality has to set in. I'm assuming that everybody here wants to make a movie. I want to make a movie. So how do you get started? Well, the first thing is throw out all these crazy ideas of 50-person crews and phenomenal locations and 200-page scripts. Write a script that you can make for $10,000. Because anybody here can find $10,000. You can call your friends and your neighbors and your family. You can, go to your checkbook. You can sell your car, go to Kickstarter, any of the crowdfunding. You can, if you put your energy into it and solid energy from a group of 2 or 3 people, you can raise $10,000. So what can you do with $10,000? You can actually make a feature film. It doesn't take that much money. It takes that much smarts. What you need to do is to make sure, first of all, you have a script that you can make for $10,000. So which means if you've got your amazing $20 million action adventure or geopolitical thriller or whatever, put it back in the drawer and write something specifically for this first step. Write a simple script. Write a script that is a 1-act play with a couple of people. That means something that happens in real time in 1 room or 2 rooms that you can shoot in a week. You can do that with 3 or 4 crew, all your friends, and a couple 3 actors, and you've made your first movie for $10,000. The trick is to make it well, which means you have to do some prep work, which I'm happy to talk about maybe later on in this because it does affect all the other steps as well. But basically, keep it simple, make it straightforward, make it also as commercial as possible. Don't make this movie about your next door neighbor's, child who went through some hell somewhere, or about something else that's, starvation in Africa. Look, we're all worried about that, but that's not where you make your first movie. Your first movie is down the middle commercial because you want to get people to watch it, because if you can make $10,001 out of your first 10K movie, you're now a successful and financially profitable producer.
That is brilliant, and I like the idea of keeping it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Just you need a crew of 3 or 4 people. You need somebody to shoot, somebody to help you with some lights, maybe somebody to help you with script and makeup. The basic things. Don't get crazy. Don't make it huge, but make it good.
I also like the idea or your comments about starting out with the end in mind, that you're going to make this to make money. It's not a advocacy. It's not it's not particularly you want to tell a story, but it really is about making some money.
Yeah. When you've made your $50 million and you're sitting on your yacht in St. Martin, make any movie you want.
Great.
But you've got to make these. I think you need to go to these first steps. You need to show people. If you want more money from people, you need to show them that you are financially viable and that you know what you're doing. This is a simple path to doing that.
And this is where I am right now. Is I have just made my first movie with my co-producer called Ian Del Carmen. I sold a condominium and threw about $10,000 of my money into it, and he did about the same. And, for me, we're both emotionally involved in this movie now. We want it to be a success. It's not a job. It's a part of our life. And we're not just going into the cinemas, but we're going to be doing parties. But the movie is actually called Bad Romance. And we're going to be doing bad romance parties and having sponsors there and making this a real event for people to come and enjoy and touring the country with it. And we're doing this because we're emotionally involved and financially involved. We want our money back.
Yep. I noticed a question from Chaz. I hope I pronounced that right. Who asked about who's going to buy a $10,000 movie?
Yep.
Nobody's going to buy a $10,000 movie that looks like it was made for $10,000. The trick is to make it look like it was made for a lot more. And there's a lot of simple things you can do to make a movie look a lot more than the $10,000 you spent on it. For instance, I don't know, Tim, do you know where Chaz is located?
No, Chaz, where are you? Can you just type in where you're located?
While he's doing that, I'm just going to say in New York, for example, in fact, Chaz, I'm going to tell you this. I actually was approached by someone who said, have you ever followed your own advice? Because I've been in the business now for 15 years. I'm kind of a few of these steps down. And I said, I have never made a movie on a micro budget. So I am doing it. I am actually going to make a movie to prove this fact out. And I've seen it done by other people like Tim. So we're actually doing the same thing. We're making an extremely low budget movie, but we're going to make it look like a much bigger movie. And the way we can do that is simple things. In New York, like I said, you can get actors. If I put a cattle call out in New York City, and we've done this, we put a cattle call out for no pay. We're paying like $50 a day to 5 actors for 7 days. We're going to get 200 to 300 people applying. So if you put the time and energy into it, you can get some great acting talent. You just have to be careful, about who you get, and take the energy to really make sure you have the right actors. Secondly, or should I say firstly, it's your script. It's all about the script. Everything else in a movie starts with the script. So you really need to write a good script. And if you've never written a script, then find someone who has, or find a good script and option it. You can find a lot of independent filmmakers, a lot of kids in film school, in writing schools who have written scripts, maybe even a short that could be transferred in or changed to a feature film for a few dollars. A lot of them would just love to see their movie get made. Find that, look for that script. Find that good script that's really down the middle commercial. Or write one, find a writer to do it. And once you've written that script, don't forget, scripts are never written, they're rewritten. Scripts are rewritten over and over and over and over.
Oh, yeah.
So, exactly. So once you get that great script you think is so good, put an ad in Craigslist, put an ad in Mandy.com, any of these websites, and say you're looking for someone to do an analysis of your movie. Community theater people might be able to look at it. You can find someone who will do a write-up on it, and you can give these people a couple of $100s to give you an analysis of your script. They're not expensive. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to do this. Get them to look at that script, and when you send them that script, do not put your name on it as the writer or even the producer. Just leave it out. Tell them you're looking at this script. You're thinking about maybe producing it. Don't tell them you did it. Just tell them you're interested in doing it. So they give you honest feedback and real feedback, and take that feedback to heart and keep working that script. And it might take you a year to get this script where you really want it, but then you have a great script. And I've talked to you about getting great talent. With great talent and a great script, you could shoot this thing in your living room and make it work. And once you've done that, back to your question, Chaz, about the $10,000, you can look at companies. For instance, I'll tell you one right now. Here's a secret for you: Freestyle Digital. Freestyle Digital is a company in LA that I've worked with. They're always looking for something great. They don't care how much it costs. They care about what it looks like. They care about how good the story is. They care about how good the acting is, how good the editing is. They care about that production value. They can do a digital distribution. You can get it out there to Netflix, to iTunes. You can get out to a number of other web-based services. You can go out to foreign distribution. You don't have to think about New York or America. America is not the end of the world for movies. It's hardly any more the start. There's a huge hungry appetite for foreign distribution for decent movies. So it doesn't matter how much you spend. It matters how good it looks.
Awesome. And this also reminds me of a conversation that I had a few weeks ago with Tom Malloy. I don't know if you know Tom Malloy. He's in LA. He's a director there. I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, you get the script, and the whole objective of this scene is to get across to the audience how lonely this girl feels. and we're in a football stadium. There's 10,000 people in the audience, and there's cheering going on, and she sat there feeling alone. And the cost of that is huge. You have to pay for the football stadium, you've got to pay for the football team, you've got to pay 10,000 people, and massive logistics. And what you could do is take her out of that football stadium and go to a park bench in the middle of nowhere and just plonk her on that. And as long as it doesn't take away from the integrity of the movie, for free, you can do exactly the same as what was done for $1 million in a football stadium.
Yep. Or you know what? Just to throw another one out there, you could buy some stock footage of a football stadium and shoot your lone person walking down an empty cement hallway somewhere and pretend it's part of the stadium.
Could do, absolutely. So
so there's always a way. There's always a way to make that $1 million shot for $1,000 or for $100.
Absolutely. And Tom and I are just going through a script right now for a movie that we're going to hopefully produce later this year. And we're doing exactly that. We're going through the script and saying, how can we make this for free, for cheap, for reduced cost? Who can we put in there that we know? What can we do to make this a cheaply made movie, but at the same time keeping the integrity and making it look expensive?
Yep. There's another thing that came up here that's part of this sort of step one. Is it Gila? Am I pronouncing that right? I hope.
I think so, yeah.
Talks about, yeah, she made 3 shorts, and she got her money back there. She made, let's see, a recent short. No, fine. Anyway, and she's saying right now, my recent short is like a demo for a movie, and no finance people are interested in financing it. Short films. I could use a very mean word, but I won't. Short films are kind of a filmmaker's, I would say black hole. I was going to use a much more bad word, but short films are great for practicing. Short films are great for testing. Short films are great for coming up with an idea, like you mentioned, that you did a short that's kind of a demo for the movie you want to make. People who are going to fund a feature film are not going to fund it because you made a short. They're going to fund it because your feature film length movie made money. So you really want to think about it before you spend, $10 and $20, $30, $100,000 on a short. As an example, I have a client who is a Iraq War vet with the VA. They were paying for his schooling. He wanted to be a director. He he and a partner wrote a short, and they came to me because my company, I'm a vet as well. My company was registered with the government, so we became the production company. He wanted a lot of things. I wrote a budget. It was $120,000 that I got approved by the government for this movie. We could have shot this movie on $10,000. But he wanted all these crazy things because he thought that's what the film industry required, and we tried to talk him out of it. But he spent his whole amount for this short. We could have shot a feature for this. Wow. The short, the short looks pretty good. He did okay, but it never went anywhere because it's a short. It's just, shorts are not what you need to do. Yeah. In fact, the movie won a gazillion awards all around the world. The short we did, but it doesn't mean anything. I don't even list it in my credits when I talk to financial people. You need to make the feature movie because you're making a product. It's sort of saying, I made a bicycle. Now give me money to make a sports car. You know what? Make a Volkswagen, and then ask for money to make a sports car.
Yeah, I really hear what you're saying, because I've been involved in show production for about 22 years now, and I actually have a special effects laser company out here in Manila. And to do a small show is almost the exact same amount as effort as it is to do a big show. But the income is hugely different. One might make $1,000 and another one might make $20,000. But the amount of effort that goes into it and keeping the customer happy is exactly the same. And you need the same staff and the same requirements. And
yep.
So you might as well make the big one.
Yep. So, I know I've kind of dragged us down a couple of rat holes here, but we're on step one. We're almost halfway through. We should be on step 4 or 5
Well,
by now.
I think step one is the foundation, and the foundation is
It is.
always the biggest part. And if you get this right, the rest of it falls into place, I think.
Yep. So I think for Gia, I think what you really need to do is you need to step back and look at your script again. I think you have to sort of face a little bit of reality here. To make your first feature, whether it's $10,000 or $500,000, it's going to come out of your pocket or people you know. So you really need to focus on making something out of the box that you can afford to make.
All right, awesome. Well, just before we move on to step 2, I want to go through some of the questions. And Stephanie had a question.
Sure.
And she wanted to speak to you directly. So let me just open Stephanie's line. And Stephanie, you should be unmuted now, so feel free to join us with your question.
Oh, is that me? I thought you said there was another Stephanie. But okay, cool. I actually had a couple, but my first question was in regards to, have you been involved in multi-country productions and bringing the money in from sort of Australia or Europe and America and combining production that way? Because I know that especially I've been involved in a lot of international films, and that seems to be the way that a lot of companies are doing it now versus not just sticking to America.
Well, I haven't been actively involved in moving money around between international film projects. I did a project 2 years ago with a German production company and an LA production company. I have worked with some a Russian film company and an LA company. The steps are honestly pretty much the same. When we get into some of these some of the steps that we're going to go through tonight later on, when we get up into that 1 million and up level, that stuff starts to it starts to be an issue, because now you're looking at gap financing, you're looking at ways to manipulate tax incentives. But for your first 3 or 4 independent movies, for those low budget movies, it really doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. Right now we're looking at you've got to be able to write that check on your own or almost on your own.
Okay.
You may be interested, Stephanie, in joining us next week. I have an interview with a guy called Michael Perlin, who has a movie called The 3 Magic Words. And he has taken his movie to about 15 different countries so far. And he and I have just struck an agreement to bring it into the Philippines. I'm going to be his distribution in the Philippines. So he has a lot of experience about that. So I'll send everybody a link to that interview next week as well. But he could be a guy to ask.
Cool.
Yeah, you mentioned Iron Sky, which I think is just an hysterically great movie. Brilliantly done, crazy movie, a lot of fun. And they did it on next to nothing by shooting this off-the-wall trailer.
$10 million, and they started with a trailer, and they got their first million from. I'm dealing with one of the producers from that, which is the film that I'm trying to get across the board right now. So that's why.
Yeah. There's always exceptions to the rule. Even
I think they're an exception.
Yeah, Blair Witch is the one that everybody likes. Oh, well, they shot it on nothing. Well, it wasn't quite on nothing when you actually dig into it. And Iron Sky, I think, is great. I watched it. I couldn't wait for that movie to come out. I really look forward to seeing it. And they did a great job of playing by the rules. They shot and created a very wonderful trailer. They put huge amounts of energy into social media and crowdfunding, and it's just one of those things that went viral. They got lucky. I think that's great. I'd rather be lucky than good.
Yeah.
But I think for most filmmakers, the chances are that's 99% of the movies aren't. That's not going to happen. And I'm trying to find what we're talking about specifically tonight is how do I crawl up the hard way? Obviously at any moment your script might get picked up. Really wonderful things can happen to filmmakers any way down the food chain. But you still, you've got to work like those magic moments aren't going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Great. So does that answer your question, Stephanie?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, let's move on because I think we've got a lot of nervous people out there. So I'll mute you again, Stephanie, for now. And if you've got any more questions, then jump in.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. All right. So let's move on to step 2.
Okay. Step two.
So there's step two. Start asking around for $50,000 and repeat step one while earning more than $50,000 using a professional writer and director.
Yeah, is the next 3 or 4 steps really, guys, are essentially the same. It's stretching your ability to work with more and more professional people. It's spending more money. It's also beginning to get like a $50K movie. If you don't have $50,000 to write the check, and hopefully you've got $5,000 or $10,000 that you made money on your first movie with. But when you go out to people and you say, I want to make a movie, I need $50,000 or I need $100,000, and they go, well, what have you done? You got that $10,000 movie. You got that smaller budget movie. And bear in mind, these numbers are kind of grabbed out of the air. It's not precisely 10 or precisely 50. It's a step approach to basically making a movie that you can afford to make out of your budget first, getting that foothold, making a slightly bigger movie, adding some more crew, adding some more cast, adding a few more locations, you can hire a professional writer from the WGA now. You've got a budget to do that. You can make an even better script. You can find a director who's done a few movies, or you know what, if you're comfortable directing and you did your first movie and it worked, great. Use your own director. But bear in mind, as we get higher up, things start to get sort of logarithmically tougher to do. So what we're trying to do is step you through, a small movie that you can completely manage. Now you're doing a movie that you need a few more people, and those steps start to expand. The scope of the film expands, the scope of the post-production expands, and you're still learning how to manage this, and you're starting to deal with more contracts, with more with unions, like WGA.
But I noticed,
so that's really what step 2 is about.
Yeah, I noticed in this step now that we've sort of upgraded things by using a professional writer and director rather than you doing it yourself. That's the big change, yeah?
Well, I recommend for anyone, unless, people will always do what they want to do. It's the independent film business. You know what? Make great movies, have fun doing it, and make them make money. So don't let me ever tell you can't do these things. But I would tell you, if you want to focus now on what you really want to be when you grow up, and I haven't grown up yet, is you've got to start looking at these steps from step 1 to step 8 is that great big movie. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a director? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be an actor? This is the first time you need to maybe say, you know what, I'm not going to wear all of these hats. I need to start relying on people, and I need to start focusing my energy so I can do a better job at one thing. So instead of writing and directing and producing and starring or whatever you're going to do, now you are getting a co-writer or a professional writer to write your idea. You can still be your idea. You can say, I got this great idea for a movie, Harry meets Sally, and I need a writer to write it. So you get a writer to do it. And maybe you go, I'm going to produce this, so I'm going to get a director. I'm going to bring on a really good local director to do this. Or I want to direct, I'm going to bring on a producer. And you find yourself another person to produce it, so that you're really beginning to focus in your niche where you want to be when you get into these bigger movies.
Okay, well, and I just jumped over to step 3 as well, which is, as you said, pretty much the same as step.
Step 3 should have been I think
that should be 100. Sorry, yes, number. That's my mistake.
Yeah. Well, again, now we double the budget again. It should be 100K on step 3. So we go from 10, 20,000 to 50-ish, and then we go to 100, and then we double up again, if you will, to 500K. And now we're in a movie at 500K after we've done 3 movies before this. And if you've done these movies successfully, you now have a resume that says, I'm a producer. I have 2 or I have 3 successful movies. And successful doesn't mean you have to make millions of dollars. It just means you need to get them out, get them released, even if it's iTunes or Netflix, and you need to see them make a few dollars. Just like I say, $1 more, make a little bit of money. And now you're starting to become an entity. You're starting to have value. You begin to have marketing value. You begin to have financial value. So now when you start talking to investors, I mean, think of it. If you walked into an investor for a 500K movie and you said, give me 500K to make my movie, I'd never made a movie before, they're pretty much going to laugh at you or say thanks but no thanks.
Yeah.
But if you say, I want to make a 500K movie, I'm going to put 20 grand of my own money in. And by the way, I've done 3 smaller movies successfully, and they've all been released. A couple of them made a few dollars. I know what I'm doing. Now you stand a much better chance of getting that investment. And by the way, through these process steps, you've learned how to manage bigger and bigger crews, more and wider ranging sets and locations. You've just taken a simple step. It's, you know, let's not go to graduate school right out of grade school. Let's go to high school and college first.
And this is an important point. You know, when we were making Bad Romance, I learned so much about what not to do.
Absolutely. If you have never made a movie, you have no idea the pain and anguish. A feature especially, you have no idea the pain and anguish. One of the things I tell people, if you want to be a great producer, you have to be a lot of things. And one of the things you need to be is a hostage negotiator, because your movie is going to get held hostage by so many people. It could be your crew getting mad at you for wanting to work another hour and you've already been going 18.
Yeah, oh, I know that.
It could be SAG actors screaming and yelling. It could be the next door neighbor who's had enough of those 10K lights out in the front lawn at 3 a.m. So you've got to, you got to deal with the local police. You got to deal with the fire department. You have to deal with all these people, and you need to learn how to do that. It's not as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of things you need to do to be a good film producer. And again, these steps will help you by simply saying, I'm going to make a small movie that I can manage and do in my living room or in a couple locations. I'm going to make another one that's a little bigger, a few more people. I'm going to start dealing with some permits. I'm going to make another one. Now I've got a WGA writer. Look, I can do contracts. I've got a great director. I'm doing my first ultra low budget or experimental SAG, and I'm learning how to deal with SAG, step at a time.
Awesome. Well, we've got a couple of comments coming in from Gracie and Chaz, but I'll hold them off now. And then let's go through the steps. And then at the end of that, then let's ask all the questions. So keep your questions coming in, guys, and I'll go through them later. So let's move on to step 6 and 7 and 8, which is basically the whole list in one go.
Yeah, these steps, when you getting up to step 5, before we hit step 6, getting up to step 5 is the learning curve. Again, that's learning how to deal with everything and adding another layer of complexity and financial, issues all the way up through. When you get to that $1 million to $5 million range, you're now really dealing with finances. You really need to start dealing with, how do I finance my feature film? You've got your track record. You've got a history of making money with your movie. You're financially viable. You're marketable because you've got a track record. Those are the things that distribution companies are looking at. Those are the things that actors are looking at. An actor puts their whole career and their life in the hands of a director. There isn't a real actor out there who's going to let someone out of the box direct them. They're going to want to see a real director. So when you start hitting this level, you've got to really start thinking about a balance in your project, a balance in your budget. You're doing a union film more than likely, so you've got to look at what your above the line and below the line costs are going to be. You've got to look at a director, and it may not be you, even though you've done a few movies. It might be, but it may not be, and you have to be prepared for that. But you've got to make sure you've got a director, either you or a good director who has a track record, who has a history of making financially successful movies. You need at least one other good producer now, but you've got a track record, so you can go find a good producer who will work with you, because you can say, look, I'm not an idiot. I've done this before. So you can get real producers to work with you. You can start to get SAG actors will look at you with much more respect because you have 3 or 4 movies under your belt. So all of this leading up to this sort of step 6 is to prep you so you become marketable, you become financially viable, and you can show that you know what you're doing, so you can get the real people to work with you.
One of the things.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that I discovered over the course of the interviews, and I'd never really thought about it, and I'm sure many people who are making movies don't think about it as well, is to think from the investor's point of view. And like if an investment company are coming in and they're going to give you money, they probably want return of investment. And they're not so much interested in your movie, but they want return of investment in their cash. So when they do these deals with people, they want to know that, one, people are going to see the movie, and two, it's going to make money so that they can get return of investment. And unless you have that track record, you simply won't attract these investors.
And things have changed over the years. It honestly was a lot easier when the economy was flying and money was really loose. You know, Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan Chase, private banking, they would give you money. I mean, as long as you had a reasonably put together business plan and you had attached actors, you had a attached director, you could pretty much land money if you had any kind of a track record. Today, it's almost impossible. It's still incredibly difficult to get money for feature films as an independent. You know, you're going to have to end up doing co-production deals. You're going to have to work with other production companies to get these $5, $10, and $20 million movies made, because you're going to need to, you know, you're going to have to find a couple of million. They're going to be putting in a couple of million. You're going to be dealing with tax incentives and location requirements to get those tax incentives done. You know, the 181 and other taxes around the world. You know, other countries have the same deals. You're going to have to deal with gap financing. You're going to have to deal with distribution. You know, doing distribution contracts and having to factor those to get more money in the budget. That stuff's tough, and without a track record of making movies and without a couple of movies under your belt, people are just not going to talk to you. And that's why I'm kind of pushing these steps. Get these 2 or 3 or 4 movies made under your belt that are easy to make, cost effective, commercially viable, set you up so you're marketable and you're financially viable, so you can do these kinds of things.
Great. So steps 7 and 8, just to finish off.
Yeah, step 7 and 8. I mean, you're making real movies now, so you know, you're really dealing with, at this point, at a $10 million and $20 million level. You've pretty much stepped out of the independent filmmaking world. You're in the production company and you're in the you know, the studio world, and those kind of projects are going to come from studios, and even studios are having a tough time right now. They're really looking at cutting down, you know, these tentpole blockbuster movies. They're making smaller, more viable movies. You can see, you know, that a lot of these big $100 million movies are just losing their butt. You know, so they're really looking at changing how they do business, and things are changing in the film industry. You've got to be much more cost effective in your film development, your film operations, and your delivery. And you've got to find a way to make that $20 million movie get made for 10 or 5, and that $5 million get made for 1, and that $1 million made for half. So we're in a good position as filmmakers, as independent filmmakers. We're in a good position as independent producers because we don't have the overhead that these large studios make. So, you know, if you want to hit that $20 million mark and you want to go after the big studio projects, you can. My goal, for instance, as a filmmaker, is I make a $3 to $5 million movie every year. I want to make a living making movies, having fun. I want to make great movies. I want to make fun movies, and I want to make them consistently. So I'm not even interested personally in step 7 and 8. I'm real happy at step 6 because I can flip those movies for profit much easier than I can a $20 million movie that takes 5-6 years just to get funded.
Amazing. And you're actually in the process of making a movie right now for a lot less than that, aren't you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you know, just for fun, we said, let's make a micro-budget movie. You know, movies I've worked on, movies I've produced, movies I've done consulting for have all been in the $500,000 to $5 million range. And I have not made a micro-budget movie personally. So I said, let's make a micro-budget movie. Let's do step 1, step 2. So we're actually making a $75,000 feature. It's going to look like $2 million when we're done because we're being smart. I took all my great. I'm a script writer too. Yeah, every one of us in this call are probably script writers. Am I great? No, but I have a good idea of stories, so I've write scripts and I send them out to my friends. I send them out to my professional acquaintances. I have them yell at me and tell me how bad it is and all the problems. And we work and work and work. And what we did in this case is we wrote a script specifically for a micro-budget movie, just like I'm telling you to do. I wrote a one-act play. I wrote a one-act play with 5 actors in a room that occurs over 8 hours. How did I make it look like $2 million? It's 5 guys in a World War II submarine in Fall River, Massachusetts for 8 hours. And we're making a horror suspense thriller that is one of the easiest selling movies to make out there today. We're doing it in a tin can that sinks. And that's the set. So we have production value that looks amazing. We only have 5 crew, 5 actors. We're doing it in one location, and it's something we can shoot in 7 days.
That sounds cool. Where can we all go and see about that? You have a Facebook page?
You can follow that. We're documenting that movie from start to finish on Facebook. We're actually doing a blog about it, and you can watch it from beginning to end. Everything from visual effects to casting to financials. We're doing crowdfunding intentionally. We've said that $75,000 budget, I am not going to write a check for $75,000. I'm going to write a check for $25,000. I'm going to go out and find $25,000 the hard way with friends, and I'm going to go find $25,000 with crowdfunding. And that's how we're going to do it, even though we could just write the check. We're not going to do it. We're going to do this the way we're telling you to do it, so we can document it and give you a pathway so you can do this as well. Visual effects, you know what? We got a copy of, we bought a copy of Cinema 4D, we bought After Effects, and we ourselves are learning how to do visual effects. I've got a great visual effects team, but you can call them too and ask questions. You can find people that do this and say, hey, Avi, tell me how to do this. Avi did Spider-Man 2, we did The Manchurian Candidate. So I call Avi and go, hey, Avi, how do I make this work? And he says, well, you know, this is how you got to do it. There's plenty of students out there, people out there that know how to do these things. So we're doing all the visual effects ourselves. We're doing all the shooting with a very small crew. We're all eating, you know, Subway tuna fish. And we're shooting this on Canons just because we want to keep it cheap but keep the production value up. So we're shooting it as an HD. You know, 2397, and we're shooting it as a 90-minute horror suspense thriller.
Brilliant. And where's your Facebook page on that?
The Facebook page for this is facebook.com/subconsciousthefilm. It's all one word.
Subconscious the film.
Yep, like it, watch it. Hey, and like I will tell every one of you, don't be proud. Ask for money. So everybody here, help me with our movie. Give us $200.
Excellent. And they can also get a link in or title, a credit in the film. Yes.
That's right. Anybody, if you get in touch with me on this webinar and you want to throw $200 in a movie, I will give you a co-associate producer credit, and we'll make sure you get on IMDb as an associate producer credit.
Excellent.
How about that for a deal?
That sounds great.
So
well,
yep.
Go on.
No, I'm just saying I'm asking everybody. I'm asking my neighbors. I ask my, you know, the people I work with. I asked Tim today for $200, didn't I, Tim?
You sure did.
Don't be proud. Go after everybody. You know, the social media thing. In fact, I'll be happy to chat about that as well if we have time. But on the social media thing, very quickly, on your first at $10, $20, $30, $50,000 movie, don't just throw up something on crowdfunding websites and expect it to happen. Put your energy into developing that social media following prior to your crowdfunding. Get it out there. You got to spend hours every day online. I do it myself. I'm putting way too much time in the social media side of this, but I've got to do it as a producer of a micro-budget movie. So I'm out there pumping this thing out, and I'm chasing people, and I'm begging, and I'm trying to get to 1,000 people on Facebook before we crowdfund so that when we do launch our crowdfunding, we already have a large following of people that will go to us at crowdfunding and give us money and also tell their friends. And we constantly push that. And we'll be doing a trailer. I think one of the people mentioned, you know, the Iron Sky trailer. We're doing a trailer for the movie. You'll see that sometime in early May as part of the crowdfunding. And we're doing a very interesting video for crowdfunding that you get to meet us, you get to hear how great our movie's going to be, you get to see us in action, you get to see a little behind the scenes. We're going to do a 30-second trailer of the feature. That's all going on crowdfunding, and we're really pushing it. And you feel free to steal this, but I tell everybody, giving $200 to our movie only costs you $200. Watching all your friends sitting in your living room watching this movie and your name comes up as a producer is priceless.
Yeah, it sure is. And I tell you, my son is going to be proud of me when he watches my movie.
There you go. Exactly. So,
yeah.
If you're going to do these, going to start at the bottom on this thing, don't be afraid. Go chase that money. You got to be proactive.
Fantastic. And I love the comments you're making about social media. I interviewed Gina Gaudio-Graves a couple of weeks ago, and she's the founder of Directions University, which talks about using the internet to help fund our movies. And it was one of the things that she said, get the audience involved in your movie long before you start launching things for requests for money, and get people emotionally involved and intrigued about what's going on, and it'd be much easier to raise money.
Absolutely, a very true statement. The real trick of this crowdfunding is to get that crowd before you ask for the funding. Well, and when you do crowdfunding, make sure you put things on there that are really interesting and really appealing. I've seen a few crowdfunding projects where people have put really bad videos up, and people will look at that and go, is that what I'm giving money for? So make sure whatever you put up on crowdfunding really rocks it.
All right, awesome. So let's go over to some of the questions. We had an email in from Tom. Tom, are you here? And I will open your channel, and you can ask the question directly to Georgia. Let me just open it. You should be live now with us, Tom. All right.
Frank,
there
he is.
There you go. How are you doing, Tom?
Okay. I'm fine, thank you. Hi, Tim. Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you do?
I'm good. You're live, so let's get your question in.
Well, yes. In setting up a business plan and doing the sourcing of the funding, there are different kinds of contributors. Those that we mentioned before, that are just putting in cash. That's one way to construct a return on investment. It's another if in startup production company, you're going to reward the writer and the director also for their talent. So how does one structure a payback for those different categories? Those who are putting in talent and those who are putting in just cash. That's how do you do that above direct cost contribution to profit formula?
You can do that a number of ways. I mean, it really is up to you and your project and your investors. Normally what would happen is a cash investor is going to win. They're going to be money in, and they're going to want to see first money out. As far as writers go, that's pretty straightforward. If you go to the Writers Guild of America, you'll find that there are agreements that talk about how you compensate a writer with back end. You can compensate them with a small amount up front, and then you can work out a back-end percentage for them as based on your profits. Same thing with the director. A lot of famous actors and directors, Tom Hanks is one. He did Private Ryan. He got nothing up front for Saving Private Ryan. He made all his money in a back-end deal. So there are a lot of ways, and every project is different. There's no set rule here. It's about what you negotiate and your ability to negotiate.
So then you would say that the best thing to do would be to quantify that and put it into the business plan up front.
Yes, I would say that you would. For instance, I'll give you an example. And this is a micro budget movie that we're doing, so we're not going to go too crazy. But we're donating 25% of the profits. We're splitting 50-50 with Wounded Warrior and the museum that we're shooting in, because we really can't. Our budget does not allow us to pay them what they're worth for the set of a real World War II submarine. So that's part of our offer to them. For our cash investors, we're working a deal where out of another 25%, they're going to get additional monies back from return on their investment. Mind you, cash investors are cash investors, so they get their money out prior to this cut. So they're going to get if you put in $500, you get your $500 out, and then the money is split. And then another 25%, because again, our crew isn't making any money. We're paying everybody like $50 a day. It's absurd. They're really working for 3 hots and a cot. So we're giving them a profit share, and it's all laid out in our business plan. So they get a profit share of that as well. So hopefully, which incentivizes them to do a better job. And the same thing with our actors. And then the last 25%, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to use that to fund our next micro-budget movie and follow these steps and actually document them so we have an example for other people to follow.
The above cost, how do you define what cost is?
What cost is? You've got to be careful because depending on your movie. Can you tell me for your project what kind of a budget you're talking about?
We're still trying to put it together.
Are you $1 million? Are you $500,000? Are you
no,
10 million?
I would 100,000.
100,000. All right, so it's not that big of a deal. Bear in mind, if you're out there looking for a lot of money, especially when you're getting up there a little bit with 100,000, if you're looking for 20, 30, 40,000, they're not people you know. You're actively seeking investment. You have to start dealing with the SEC and rules and regulations, at least here in America. Every country is going to have their own rules and regulations. So you're probably dealing with high net worth investors. And high net worth investors will want to see very detailed contracts and deal memos put into place. But again, the actual percentage and the cut out of that is very flexible. That's really your negotiation ability as a producer. And a lot of the people say, look, if I'm going to put in $500 to your movie or $1,000 or $5,000, I'm not going to be as upset and worried about it as if I'm putting in $50,000. If I'm putting in $50,000, I'm going to want to see complete accounting, which means you've got to budget in an accountant, and you've got to really have all your ducks lined up, and you've got to show her every penny went, and you've got to clarify up front what will be costs and what will, and where that profit is. Is it gross? Is it
This
net?
is production cost as a. Excuse me. This is production cost before you add in distribution cost. Is that correct?
Tom was asking if the production costs should include the distribution costs when you're doing all the calculations.
Yes. Yeah, I would say absolutely, because that's an expense that goes into getting the movie out and getting it delivered. So that was definitely an expense that should be taken into account prior to distribution of funds.
All right, and that sort of sums that up very clearly. But the other point I noticed was that you were saying that the cash investors should be paid first before the other people have paid their areas. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really, that's something I was trying to explain. It's so much more about negotiating the deal at that point than there is any set rules. But if somebody's going to say, I'm going to give you cash, they're probably going to demand that. I mean, if you can get them to do it without that, even better.
Yeah. All right, awesome. And I really like the idea that some of these big actors like Tom Hanks and everything are willing to work the way that you mentioned, that they'll take shares and interest in the movie.
I think he made like $40 million on Private Ryan. He didn't take a penny up front.
Well, that was certainly worth it.
Yeah. Now, other people have done it. I think, I can't remember the other movie Tom Cruise has done it. He's lost his ass on a couple, and he's made a lot of money on a couple. So, yeah. It's really, that depends on how much they like the movie and they think the value that it has and who else is involved. And then it gets back into who's the distributor, who's the studio, who's the director, who's the rest, who are the rest of the cast. And they may decide that this is going to be a great movie, so I want a bigger piece of the back end, and no upfront, or a smaller upfront.
All right, great. Well, listen, I'm sure we could talk absolutely all night and for the rest of our life about film financing. So, we've been an hour. It's probably time to wrap up a little bit. If people want to get in touch with you, Georgia, how can they contact you?
They can contact me through Georgia at HiltonMM.com, GeorgiA @HiltonMM.com. And additionally, we have a division called Film Doctors, and they can go find that at filmdoctors.com, and they can find that at HiltonMM.com, which is our production company site. And if they come to Film Doctors, if they're looking for some help with any of these steps, we're happy to always chat on the phone for a few minutes. But if they want to hire us, we'll do a consulting contract to help them get through whatever step they're stuck on, and we'll definitely give a discount for for your people. So.
Fantastic. And listen, Georgia, I want to thank you so much for being part of this today and taking time to be with us.
Oh, I had a great time. I'm sorry that we had a technical snafu at the end. I was really kind of enjoying the discussion.
I know that happens. That's the beauty of live.
Yeah. Well, look, if you ever want to do another one, and and maybe talk a little more about the higher level, financing issues, I'll be happy to chat about dealing with high net worth investors. I actually do a class on that.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. I'd like to know a lot more about that.
Yeah, we can talk about gap financing and how to pull a $1 to $2 million movie together.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Georgia.
It was really fun.
A lot of fun having you here, and you're an awesome woman.
Yeah, I look forward to getting the recording. It'll be fun to listen to.
Great, great. Well, this is Tim Bennett for Awesome FM. You've been listening to the Film Finance channel. We've had Georgia Hilton with us today talking about financing a movie and the 8 steps to finance a movie. Finance a movie properly, or go and find yourself a lover. That's the message from Georgia. And thank you all for listening. And don't forget, next week, we're going to have Michael Perlin here talking about the 3 magic words. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you, Georgia. Have a great time. Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
Good night.